Hey folks, welcome back to Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Burrell, and I'm extremely excited once again today to share with you one of my favorite brand new programs we've been doing for a little while at least. That's entitled My Story, My Words, where, as you can tell in the title, that implies that someone is going to tell their story in their own words. And that someone today is a great friend of the program, Ovuke McCoy. She's one of those people that continues to encourage, to inspire, to enlighten me. Every time I'm around her, her big smile and her way of doing things just impresses me so much. Now, you may recall it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I actually was able to sit down and speak with her mother, Miss Lucy. And I told you at that point about how they had been on the Today Show, kind of doing a lot for organ donation / transplant awareness, all of that stuff. Well, that's why it's taken me now almost 2 weeks to sit down with Ovuke and talk with her. But we are talking here about the daughter of a mother-daughter transplant survivor group or family. And basically their entire family has been riddled with heart-related issues, hard times, difficulties, death. It's a sad story, really, but the beautiful stories are those that are contained in the life of both Miss Lucy, Ovuke's mother, and, of course, Ovuke today. So glad to have you with us on the program, Ovuke. Thank you so much for joining me on this. And let me just start out by asking you the very first question, and that is, if you don't mind, from your perspective, I've told what I know, but tell me a little bit about yourself as well as maybe your family, who your caregiver was at the time.
All right. First of all, thank you, Jim, for having me on your program today. And it's awesome to have the opportunity to have my story, my words on here. Again, my name is Ovuke Emonina McCoy. And a little bit about me. I'm a wife. I'm a fur mother.
Mm-hmm.
And my past career, I've done academic advising. I've done my degree in counseling. I've worked with in higher education. I've done lots of volunteer work with my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I'm involved in the Junior League of Birmingham, which I've been. So I've been very involved in the community of Birmingham. And during the time of transplant, I had a couple of caregivers. My brother, who unfortunately passed in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
he was one of my caregivers. He was my main caregiver, as well as my mom and my husband. So that's a little bit of introduction about me.
So you are a very, very busy lady, and you're pretty important in my book. If you're involved in all of that, you're doing a lot of good, and so the world certainly needs your service. So thank you for that. Next question here then. We know a little bit about it because your mother told us a little bit about you all's stories a week or two ago, but maybe you got a different perspective. I know you got more information, but tell me a little bit about how you were first introduced to transplant. What caused you to have to go down this road? What caused you to need the transplant?
Well, I was actually first introduced to transplant by my mother,
Mm-hmm.
who had a transplant in '95. So that was my first introduction to transplant. But for me, getting a transplant myself, I was in advanced heart failure, having advanced heart failure. And I don't know if I can mention UAB. Well, I've already mentioned it.
Oh yeah, mention them. Doctors' names, I don't care. Call them all out.
Yeah, working with the advanced heart failure team at UAB. So I was already working with the heart failure team because of having hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Okay.
There, I had ICD, and they noticed that I had a buildup of fluid around my heart after previously in 2016, I ended up having a heart attack in December 2016. And it was a small heart attack. So that was the buildup of heart failure. And then in the July of 2017, I end up having a small stroke. Ooh. And close to the end of December 2017, early January of 2018, 3 weeks after I got married, I was given a biopsy. And that's when I was immediately recommended for the heart transplant list and by one of the doctors. Okay. And that's when I was introduced to heart transplant.
Okay. So if I remember your story right, to add to that or get you to add to it, this has been a lifelong thing, not only being introduced to it, as you say, by your mother, but also the fact that what you have is kind of a hereditary type thing. Is that the way I understand that?
Yes, Jim, it has been hereditary. So I've known heart disease, about heart transplant from my mom, and heart disease all my life is genetic. So hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the heart disease that I have is genetic, which is basically thickening of the heart muscle. So it's basically something I've had to deal with. So that's how I come upon heart transplant, due to what they call HCM.
Right. And
so over time, my heart started to thicken a little bit more, and it was going into failure, and fluid started to build up. Okay. So that's what happened.
Yeah. So you had been monitored. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you had been monitored and kept up with, I guess, your whole life off and on. And so it was nothing new, but of course it was something new too because of the worsening state, right?
Yes. It was, heart transplant was new. It was, I think with anybody, when you say heart transplant, I'm like, wait a minute now. Hold up.
Yeah, don't say that with my name. That's somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, especially I had just gotten married. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be honeymooning here. Wait a minute, it's 3 weeks after I just got married. You said you want, and my husband was in the doctor's office with me. Y'all gonna put me on heart transplant? I just got married. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
No. Don't y'all have some medicine like I've been giving you for the past couple of years, or another, some device or something? So, yeah, I mean, I've been dealing with heart. You know, how you just live with heart disease. You just manage heart disease. That's what I've been doing my whole life, managing heart disease. But now you come with transplant, even though I saw my mother live with transplant, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. That's not me,
Yeah. Let me ask you a special question then. This is not on the list of what I normally would ask, but I've been there, done that. How much did your, at the time, soon-to-be and just got to be husband know about your situation? Because I kind of kept my wife in the dark for several years while we were dating until I finally had to spring on her. Yeah, I might die one day because of this. I had kind of hid mine. How much did he know?
I kept it up until when I had to go to the hospital for that mini heart attack, and then he had to know because we were dating at the time. I'm like, he's like, where are you? Well, we were actually supposed to go on a Friday night date. And he said, well, where are you? I said, well, I'm in the hospital. He said, what are you doing there? I said, I had a little heart attack. He said, what are you talking about? Okay. And I got to tell you my story.
Yeah.
So, and that's how that happened. So, when you do those type of things, when you're dating somebody, you don't want to spill all your things or somebody to kind of like, well, you're gonna die. But that was that first incident, and he's like, you have to kind of give and take, So.
Yeah. So he had kind of what I call the Ricky Ricardo moment from the old I Love Lucy show, where he said, "You better explain." You got to explain.
Yeah, you got to explain. You got some explaining to do.
Absolutely.
So he was there. He was there from that first hospital visit. He's there now. So he's very, very, very supportive.
Awesome.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, then from the time, okay, so you hear the word transplant associated with your name, you're not really expecting that, even though you're familiar with such. You're not expecting that. How long was the time span between you hearing that word and you actually getting the transplant? And then maybe how long were you actually on the actual list?
So they told me in January 2018, like, hey, we're going to go ahead and start the process of you getting on the list in January. But I actually got on the list in March of 2018, and I received my transplant in July of 2018.
Okay. So July,
So
really January to March to July, kind of the variables there.
March to July.
Okay.
So my official listing, when I count, it was 118 days.
Okay. Well, I
So
mean, in the waiting for transplant world, unfortunately, that's not bad at all. That's pretty good. I waited 306. Oh, I almost lost it. Is it 364? 364 days or 265 days. See, I made up all that. 265 days is what I waited, which was, again, I thought pretty good at the time. Now, we know people go a lot quicker, but the majority of us are waiting a while. So I'm glad that you didn't have that long of a wait on that. Well, let me insert this little story from my perspective because this is about the time I crossed paths with you for the first time. I think you were maybe a week or two out of transplant, still laying in the back of that HTICU, heart transplant intensive care unit. I come walking in the door, and y'all, she scared me. I slid that glass door open to tuck my head in, and she hollered and jumped, and I like to had to go back in the unit myself. I was pretty fresh out of transplant, but she said, "You that guy off YouTube?" And yeah, that was me, and that's where our friendship kind of began. And I really appreciate that. I had to bring it up, but you have been a fighter for sure. Not only what has gone on with your family in the past and what you've endured, but for yourself, you've certainly been a fighter. So when it came down time for transplant, you get up to that point, you're getting to that July. How did the process go right then? Were you in the hospital waiting, or had you been at home? What?
Well, Jim, let me tell you, that wait, as you know, as any person that's waiting on track, that wait is just crazy. You have so much anxiety. You just like, when is it going to come? So I was continuing to work full time. I did not stop going to work. I was at work on time every single day. How mine came about, it was one Monday morning. I had went into work and I wasn't feeling well. And I had contacted the pre-transplant union, the pre-transplant coordinator, and said, "Hey, I got some fluid going on. I'm just not feeling right, you know." And she had told me, "Hey, go to the emergency room." I'm like, "I don't want to go to the emergency room.
Dang.
I don't want to do that." She said, "Well, you called after 4 p.m." I'm like, it was after work. So, and I said, "Well, I'll just go." And I went to the emergency room, and then I was like, you know what? I ended up leaving the emergency room because I did not want to sit there with all those people. So the next morning, I think it was Tuesday morning or something like that, I went to work again, and she told me to go and get some labs. And, you know, I'm just determined to go to work, and I'm still not feeling well. And I'm feeling bad. And I said, I'm going to just get one of my coworkers. It's the 4th of July weekend. I'm planning to go on a vacation. And I called Yen again, and she said, Yen called me. And, you know, sometimes the coordinators can fuss at you and say, "You left the emergency room last night." I said, "I sure did, because I didn't want to wait in there. And I'm going to get you a bed." I said, "Well, good. That's what I wanted anyway," or something like that.
There you go.
We just went back and forth. I was like, "But good. I'm glad you're going to get me a bed." So she called me back, and I got a bed, and I left work, and I told my supervisor, "I may not be back or whatever. So I'll see y'all. I may be on vacation or whatever." And And they got me in bed, and they were and all I think they were just gonna get the fluid off my body, but they got me in bed, and then that night, Doctor, oh my goodness, I can't remember her name,
Pambucan?
but she came in, not Pambucan, the other doctor, I can't think of her name, Indian,
Yeah, Roger Prayer.
but Roger Prayer, that's who it was. She came in, she said, I think we're going to move you to the transplant floor. I was like, for what? I'm just here for the night. I'm going on vacation the next 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're going to move you to the transplant floor. I said, for what? She said, we're going to move you in 30 minutes. Wow, y'all moved me pretty fast. So they moved me that night. That was the 4th of July. And I was like, the 5th, I was up that morning, and then Dr. Hoops walks in, this tall guy, no smile on his face, and comes walking in, and I'm like, who is this dude? You know what I'm saying? Like, who is he? He's walking in serious. Hey, I think we have a heart for you.
Oh.
What? Oh, okay. He has no smile whatsoever.
Nope.
And he described it. He's very serious. He said, this, and said, have you ever had surgery before? I said, no. Do you have any scars? No. Okay. Well, we start at 5 p.m. We got to check one more thing. I was like, did this man just say we have a heart for you? And my husband sitting there, he said, babe, they said they had a heart for it. And he said, I come back at noon. They did a swan on me earlier that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, came back at noon. He said, okay, we'll start at 5 p.m. What? Oh, my God. And that's how it happened. And I just went up and started throwing up my hands and screaming and praising God.
Absolutely.
And screaming and everything. And then one of the nurses came in. She said, I'm happy for you. Can you stop screaming? You're disturbing the other patients. So that's how that happened.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned a few characters in there that we have mutual feelings for. Yen Dibble is one. Yen is an absolute superstar in our world. She's the pre-transplant coordinator, has been for years.
Yes.
I've seen her walking around with I don't know how many extra pounds full of baby pregnant as she can be and doing her job. And she doesn't mind. She's a sweet girl, but boy, she don't mind cutting you up if she needs to to make you do. But she's great. But Yen and Dr. Hoops, he's a serious man. First time I ever met him, he was not associated with my transplant. He was more he was doing more lungs than hearts. Now he's kind of crossed and does a little bit of everything. But first time I ever met him was in a hospital room. I was trying to go in and educate, mentor some patients. And he was very offended that I was in that patient room and he was trying to be in there. And, of course, popped off, asked me who I was, a little rude thing. I told him what I was doing. He looked at me like, I don't care. And I abruptly left the room. As it turned out, apparently, in the next few week or month or whatever, he must have investigated a little bit more because the next time I came in, onto the unit there, I happened to come past him in the hall, and I was completely content to avoid him and not say a word. But he stopped me and told me he appreciated the work I did. So I think he had kind of done a little digging by then that I was trying to do good. But yeah, he's a different character. He can be a nice guy, but you've got to get to know him pretty well for that. So anyway, well, sounds like you did have an adventure, and you were a little bit like me the day I went in the hospital. I was determined I was going on vacation that day and not getting a heart transplant, but it was different than that. Well, tell us a little bit about your recovery. I know you've had some bumps in the road. I've seen you do great, and I've seen you have some tough times. So tell us about that.
I was pretty much in the hospital for about 2 weeks after transplant and went home, had to do my cardiac rehab, and went home, was doing fine, and went back to work 5 months after transplant and was working, and then hit a bump in the road. CMV hit, infection. And I thought I would do fine, and my coordinator at that time was Sabrina, like, oh, you need to make sure you're wearing a mask. So I was, at that time in 2019, I'm the only one in my work building that's wearing a mask, but imagine everybody's wearing masks now. And
Mm-hmm.
make sure you wash your hands, make sure you're doing this. And, you know, I had to take several types of shots and those types of things. They said, well, we'll just have you come in. Another thing, they would have me come in just for the hospital for the weekend. This was another hospital thing. But I ended up staying for 6 weeks. So I was like, I thought I was going to stay a weekend. So that was another time. I thought I was just going to stay for a couple of days, but they had to get the infection down because my white blood count and they said that typically happens in the first year of transplant. They had to treat me with something for sparse carnet. And so I was in there for 6 weeks, and then I had left out. I was happy to go home. I was like, yeah, I was happy to go home. And then I had to go back in for another week. And then I left and had to go back in for another 2 weeks. And so I was tired of seeing the hospital after that. And that was one of those things within that first year of transplant that you have to be so careful in following your coordinator. Yeah.
I remember that weekend lie you got because I was like, found out you were there and was trying to coordinate because I was going to get over and, you know, drop in, say hey. And then I thought, well, she'll be gone by Monday or by whatever day it was. And then I heard you was in there. I said, man, I'm going to catch her this week. And I thought, oh, she gone home. And then before it was over, I was like, man, you could have went over and seen her 25 times by now, how long she'd been in there. But I'm glad you finally got out. So what's your recovery been like since then? Let's pretend that never happened. What's it been like since then?
It has. I have not returned to the hospital. Thank goodness. I have not seen it. I told him, I said, y'all would not see me. But I had to go in after that to get some recurring treatments, outpatient treatments. But my recovery has been great. For that, keeping up with regular doctor's appointments, making sure that I take my meds on time, keeping up with my medicine, making sure I go to my doctor's appointments. And to be honest, I have a great mentor, my mom. I saw what she's done in the past and following her lead because she always went to her doctor's appointments. She always took her meds. She always, you know, listened to her coordinator. She talked so highly of her coordinators, you know, when she had her transplant. So I couldn't do nothing but to follow in her footsteps to make sure that I was successful. I mean, she's 26 years transplant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to live to, you know, see that as well. So I've been following her lead as well and asking her questions. So she's been my biggest mentor. So my recovery has been great. I've been able to slowly return to work. I'm working part-time and now I've been blessed with the opportunity to return to work full-time in the next month. So I've been blessed.
Well, go ahead with that then. I'm excited for you. Well, you mentioned these coordinators, your mom's coordinator, and of course the ones that we're familiar with. I just want to give a huge shout out to them, whether it's Yen Dibble, our pre-transplant coordinator, Connie Bowen, Allison Hayes, Sabrina, Robin. I don't know that much about Robin yet. Robin's awesome, but we've got a great group at UAB. We thank a lot of our doctors, Dr. Talaj, Dr. Van Buchen, some of the other support doctors as well, but it's the coordinators. They're the key to this. They keep that thing turning and keep those gears oiled so we can keep on going. So I'm appreciative of them, and I know you are as well. Let me ask you another question.
They run the magic. They make things happen. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love our coordinators. They make things happen.
Yeah, it's definitely an entertaining thing to watch. Sometimes as quick as they can get those tests and procedures, boy. You get those schedulers on the phone. Well, we can see you next next March and all this. And they're like, you coming in tomorrow. You can just come on over
Yeah,
here. We got you.
let me
Let me
call my
handle it.
coordinator. Yeah, let me
Yeah.
call my coordinator real quick.
Well, that's good stuff. Let me ask you a couple questions then that come along behind that. So your recovery's been better lately, and here you are making big progress now. But what would you say have been the best and the worst things about transplant? You put them in either order, but the best and the worst things that's come out of transplant for you personally.
Well, let me start with the. I'll start with the. I can start with the worst first. I think some of the. Well, I wouldn't say. I guess the cons. Some of the things with transplant, you kind of have to watch in the beginning stages that sometimes you can feel that you blame yourself, you get guilty for another person passing away so that you can live. You have to watch your mental health. That can be some of the worst things. Some of the worst things could watch depression and anxiety, and you realize that you really have to reach out and talk to someone. If you don't, because you get further ahead to that. Some of the things you have to realize the relationship that you have to nurture. Because you can gain some relationship and you can lose a number of relationships doing heart transplant if people don't understand that. Because it affects everyone around you. So I realized that because that first year you are really not yourself. You're really not. And now that I look back at it, I'm like, man, I wasn't really myself. Now I'm myself. So some of the worst things, the pain, sneezing was the worst at the beginning of the
My pill is sitting over here behind me to this day, and I will pull it out.
That was the worst. Sneezing was the worst during transplant, and not being able to take some of your food for a while and just figuring out what all these medicines that you had to take and prednisone. My goodness, I'm so glad I am not taking that anymore. So for those who are taking it still, you have to take it. God bless you. That, listen to your coordinators, but I'm so glad I'm not taking it because that was the one that made me feel the worst on transplant. So,
for sure. Okay, what about some of the best things that you've gotten out of this?
I would say some of the best things it's giving me a second chance at life. I don't feel as fatigued comparatively. I've gained new opportunity to do new things, to share my story with people. I've gained new friendships. I'm able to do physically new things I wasn't able to do. I know my limitations. I appreciate life more. I would say that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate life a whole lot more.
Yeah, I think far and above for most of us, and I've heard some different answers through the course of this, but I don't think any of them have been far off base from just saying opportunity and time. Transplant has given opportunity and time. It's given experience with people and a whole new aspect and look of life. So I think that's definitely true for most all of us. Let me ask you one more question then, and I'm waiting. I've been waiting for 2 or 3 weeks to hear this from you. I'm gonna build you up, see, so you better do good. What is some advice that you might give to someone who's either waiting for transplant or maybe they're just shortly after?
I would say this is definitely, it is an opportunity for you to get a second chance at life. Be patient. It is definitely going to come in that time being. Write down your goals, write down your dreams, live the life that you live, live the life go ahead and live presently the life you're going to live, but write down what you want to do in the future. That's what I did. I wrote down what I wanted to do, and I started researching things. That's what I did. I know I looked up things on YouTube, and that's how I found you, Jim. I started listening to all your videos and like, what is this transplant life going to look like? Start finding some transplant mentors, such as Jim, or on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and see what they're doing, see how they're living their life, and asking them questions of how to prepare and those types of things. Join some Facebook groups and see how it would be. Those are some things that I would do. That's what I did to do to prepare for heart transplant, because that's the best way to do it. The doctors was not able to prepare me. The coordinators were not able to prepare me. I had to ask the people who were there or look for answers from real people who've been through it like I have.
Right. That's great advice. And I've always tried with this channel, at least my videos, 575 videos worth, or at least whatever it is exactly now about that. I've always tried to present things from a been there. I call it been there and doing that perspective. Not done it, but doing it, because we're still doing it. I mean, hopefully we will for many years. And as much as I love the coordinators, we mentioned the doctors, the teams that we have, and everybody's got a team that's special to them and all over. But as much as we love them, they just don't have the first-hand experience. Thankfully, they don't, but they don't have that typically. And so you've got to go to people who do. And that's what I hope I can help to accomplish. And that's certainly something you've helped us with today, Ovuke, getting some insight into your life and your story, the troubles and the difficulties, but also the triumphs that you've been involved in is an inspiration. I'm absolutely sure. So you got anything you'd like to add here toward the end of this?
I just appreciate you having me on to talk on your show, because like I said, you've been a mentor of mine, especially when I was pre-transplant. I was just, looking for a fresh perspective, a new perspective and then I was like, oh, he's from Alabama. He went to UAB. And I'm like, wow, so I just appreciate you even having me on the show. So I'm honored and humbled for you having me on your show today.
Awesome. Well, y'all hear that now. See, this is the lady that was on the Today Show just a couple of weeks ago. And that's a big deal, but she's here now. So, hey, that's a big deal. So, thank you very much. Well, Ovuke, I definitely, let me just say it straight out. I love you, girl. You've been a huge inspiration to me and to so many others. And hopefully anybody who may see this in the future will be inspired by it as well. So to you and Lucy and the whole family and everybody, y'all just keep on keeping on. That's what I want to encourage you to do. Let me add also, if you would like to be a part of a program like this and allow me to help you share your story, I'd love for you to do that. You can easily do that. Comment below the video. Find me over on Facebook, however you want to. The Transplant Helper pages are there. Of course, my personal page, JIMMURRELL, that's Jim Murrell, is there. And even a better way, if you want to text me, my number's on the screen right now. You can text me at 256-733-1214. And that's my personal text number. You can go ahead and text me, and we'll get some conversation started. And I'd love to share your story as well. But one more time, Ovuke, thank you so much for sharing your story. I love you guys, your whole family. And you just, like I say, just stay stronger.